Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and in today's video we're going to be focusing on breaking the lines to score. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be focusing on a pattern of play which is focusing on our movement to break the lines and then obviously look to score. But before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we're working with this week and the equipment that we'll be using. So the session is planned out for 10 outfield players plus a goalkeeper, but if you have more players, that's fine, you can just add them in. For now, you could just add, let's say you had 2 more players, 1 player at the start point for each team as well. If you had 2 goalkeepers, you could look to have the drill go maybe 2 ways, or you could just have the keepers rotating as well. And if you have more players again, you can just maybe look to add defenders in, okay, or players even shadow defending, just to make the players think about their movement, and you can just swap over to be attackers each time. So how it's going to start is this player here, okay, is going to be the player who looks to break the lines, okay. This player is going to look to set inside, so they're receiving it in between the lines as well, okay. And we're going to have a striker looking to finish. So how, in terms of the setup, okay, and the equipment, we're going to be using balls, bibs, cones, and then if you have poles or mannequins to use, that'd be perfect as well, okay. In terms of the setup for this part of the session, so from the goal line to where the strikers are here, okay, we're going to go with between 20 and 25 yards of depth. So that depends on the age group that you're working with, okay. This player here is only going to be a further 5 yards back, so then it'll either be 25 or 30 yards. This player here is going to be 10 yards further back, okay, so it'll either be 35 or 40 yards, and then the start point will just be 5 yards further back as well. In terms of the width, you're going to want 10 yards in the middle, okay, in here, and then we're going to have between 10 and 15 to this player here, and then this player is just going to be 5 yards here, so it's going to be 10 in there, then it could have, so you could have 30 plus the 10, so there's 40 yards there, and then the start point is just a little bit further each side. But if you don't have as much room, you're working with younger players, you can condense that if you want to as well. So this player will just be 5 yards from where the start point is here, the central start point here, to off there, and then the rest of the room will go to there for this player here. So how it's going to work is, it's going to start at the start point. We're focusing on this player's movement. They can either open out, okay, to receive it, or they can double movement, so move away to come towards the ball, can either take a touch across to then play, or play first time. So we're trying to put ourselves in a position, okay, to have the ability to play first time, but also to receive on the back foot. So player receives it, okay, and they're going to play down in towards this player who's going to receive in between the lines. Again, they can either play first time, okay, or they take a touch inside. This then encourages the run on the overlap, okay. This player at the start moves into there. As this happens, the striker's then going to look to receive the ball, okay, with this player moving on the overlap. We're then looking to set in behind the defence, okay, so we're breaking those lines to receive it. Striker then spins off, ball gets played into there, okay, and the striker looks to finish. The player who's set, so the attack midfielder, becomes the striker. The player who broke the lines becomes the attack midfielder, and the striker goes to the back of the queue, okay, so then the start point will then be with the blue side, okay, so the opposite side gets played into here, so focusing on our movement. Then we're focusing on, okay, don't move too quickly, okay, so don't want to be in there too early, but sensing when that ball's going to come in, okay. So then play the ball into the player's path for them to move on to, receive it, get set into there, okay, so get setting in centrally. We're creating that space by following our movement as well, for then that ball to get played in behind into space, get set in front for the striker to then finish again, okay. So if we can play first time, brilliant, okay. If not, okay, can we focus on a good first touch to take us into space, okay, to be able to then play the pass that we're looking for, okay, to break the lines. And then once we're in that final third, can we look to finish quickly, keep it sharp, okay, keep the touches, keep the passes sharp, okay, to encourage in a game that we can get past the opposition and score. Because if we're taking too many touches or the movement's too slow and we're not getting onto the ball, then in the game there's more chance of the opposition blocking the passes and being able to intercept the ball. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now focusing on our second pattern of play. Okay, so this time we're now focusing on our midfielder breaking the lines to move into space and then score. So we can do 2 different types of patterns for this. So the centre backs, okay, are going to remain in the same place. Now you can adapt that and make the move further up the pitch if you wanted to, but if you have got your 2 centre backs in there, okay, you can focus on them just in terms of playing it out from the back, okay, playing across to each other and then playing forward. So the first pattern, okay, is going to see the attack midfielder receiving the ball on the run to go in and score. So the coach will play into either centre-back. This centre-back then plays it to the opposite side, so focus on this player's movement to open out, okay. They're then going to play into the attacking, the winger in here, okay. So what we're focusing on is these combining quite quickly, okay. So the winger looks to receive it, okay, and they're looking to take the ball inside, drop it off to the striker, okay. As this starts to happen, we're wanting to see this player on the move. So if you wanted to, you could have the striker take the ball, okay, round the corner and set it into the attack midfielder, or the better way to do it would be, as that winger receives it, okay, here, they could open out, play to the striker, okay, get set back inside for them, and then as they receive it inside, we make that run in behind the defence, breaking the lines to go in and then score. So then in terms of our movement, okay, the player who's finished, okay, so the player breaking the lines, will move to be as if they're the striker. Striker moves to be the wide player. Wide player goes back to the start point. Okay, so then the next time, the coach will play to this centre-back, okay, who will then play into this player here, okay, comes to the wide player, who receives, creates that space by opening out, okay, gets set into the striker this side. They look to set it to the opposite side. This player looks to make the run in behind to meet the ball and then score. Okay, so we've worked it from wide into central areas and then playing through. So again, the players' movements will be, they're basically just moving up one each time. So striker comes to there, okay, attack midfielder comes wide, this player goes back to the start point. Centre-backs continue to just work on their passing and receiving skills, okay, to move forward there. Now, the second pattern that we do, okay, is going to start again, ball into the centre-back, we open out, okay, and now what we're focusing on is just the movement of the wide player. Okay, so we want the striker to drop in short, so it's a little bit more simple of this one. So a little double movement as the centre-back receives the ball, come in towards the ball, and then as they take the touch, spin out, okay? Striker can then come short on an angle to receive it and look to set in behind, so that body shape to receive and ability to play first time. As that ball is getting played, we then want the attack midfielder to make that run on the shoulder to then receive in space and then finish. Okay, so the movement again will be the same. Wide player becomes the player at the start point. Striker who set comes wide. Player who set the ball in behind will then become, the player who finished will then become the player who set the ball in behind. Then we go the opposite side. Centre back receives it, opens out, okay, double movement. As that ball gets played, player drops in short, player spins in behind, gets played into the space for them to meet, move on to. Timing our run into the box, ball gets played in, look to finish first time. Again, so we're focusing on our player's ability, okay, to play and finish first time. So it all starts with our movement, our body shape and how we receive the ball, okay, and then our timing of the runs as well. Not being in there too early, okay, and showing that agility, that speed to get onto the ball, okay, and that quickness to drive in and then look to finish. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to part 3 of this week's session. Okay, now moving into the final part of this week's session, we're now moving into a small-sided game. Okay, so the setup for this part of the session, okay, what we're going to have is we're going to be focusing on this being the final third. Okay, obviously we've got the 18-yard box here, but we're not too concerned about that. This just use the pitch that you've got. And obviously if we made it too small in terms of, if we just use like inside the 18-yard box, in terms of us trying to focus on the space in here, it wouldn't work. So final third, Okay, you kind of want between around about 15 yards, okay, since it's just 1v1 in here. Middle area, okay, can be a little bit more, can be about 20 yards, and then this area here, you want about 10 yards. But if you adapt it, and when you take out the areas in here, okay, you might want to make it a little bit smaller, okay. So you're going to go 20 in here, 15 there, so 35, so you're looking about 45 yards total depth. Then if you have more players, so let's say you had 2 more players and it was 6v6, the space would work even better. In terms of the width, you're just going to go with between 20 and 25 yards of width, okay? So the blues are going to be attacking the smaller side of goals. The red's going to be attacking the bigger goals. So they're trying to break the line, so they've got to get into this area to score. Now they can do it by either receiving it and driving into the final third, or player receives the ball and then the player makes the running behind to go in there. So these players are locked into the zones. These players aren't, okay? So we're focusing on getting the ball. So it's 1v1 here, so they're trying to move it quickly into the middle third, okay? And then we're focusing on, can we get players running off in here as well? So you get a player, let's go, this player might come short, the striker, player spins off into space, receives it, scores, okay? Back in there again, they'll then receive the ball again. Okay, they're trying to focus it, find the space again. Player can receive it here, gets played in, striker comes in short, goes in towards the wide player, we go in and score. So then in terms of the blues, when they win the ball back, okay, so a player might win it back in here, or they might have players doubling up, they win the ball, they're focusing then breaking the lines to get forward. Okay, so we can get the striker, okay, drop to there, then we get a runner off the shoulder into space to then look to score. They'll then receive the ball again. What you could do is after they've scored maybe 3 goals, okay, that their teams can swap over. So what we're focusing on is, when a ball's getting played into a player, can we have options ahead of the ball, okay, as well as options, okay, to the side and behind. So you've got the option behind there with that centre-back. You've got options ahead here, and then these 2 players on them, both of them not just sprinting into space. Can we get a player spinning off, okay, to take a play with them, and then a player dropping in to receive it, and then we can look to play through the lines to then score. If you had 2 goalkeepers, you could just set up 2 bigger goals, okay? Like I say, you don't want the area to be too big, but we also want space for the players to manoeuvre in as well, so that the players can obviously look to find space, okay, as they would on a pitch. It might be a little bit difficult with younger players, with it being 5v5, you might want to condense it a little bit, okay? But also, we don't want to be in too tight, because then it becomes hard for the players to get the ball out. So again, the defensive third looks and receives it, so there's a chance to go and press the ball. Can they play into an area? This isn't in here now, so communicate with each other, okay? Can we tell a team? Can we say man on, okay? Play might lock on into here, we find the space, break the lines by even playing the ball into the striker, and then look to score. And then again, can we do it again? Can we do it again? After a certain amount of time, you might take out, okay, the restrictions in terms of these players being locked in. So then this player might drop into space, but then at the same time, we don't want too many players in one area. So again, we're trying to focus on having a focal point high up the pitch and a player deep here to be able to manoeuvre the ball. If you have more players, like I say, you can look to spread it out a little bit more as well. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view all of our exclusive content. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.